The envelope sat on the granite kitchen counter like a coiled snake. Naomi Johnson stood in the doorway of her home, grocery bag still in her hands, 7 months pregnant belly pressing against the weight, and stared at the single white envelope propped against the coffee maker. Her name was written across it in Derek's familiar handwriting, bold, careless strokes that she'd once found charming. The house was too quiet. Derek. Her voice echoed through the empty rooms. No answer. She set down the groceries slowly, her hands already shaking though she didn't yet know why. The baby kicked hard against her ribs as if warning her. Don't open it. Walk away. Go back outside where the sun is still shining and the world still makes sense. But her feet carried her forward anyway. The envelope wasn't sealed. Inside were folded papers, official-looking documents with a law firm's letterhead. And underneath, a single handwritten note on Derek's personal stationery. Naomi unfolded the note first. Naomi, I've filed for divorce. My attorney will contact you this week. I've moved out and taken what's mine from our accounts. The baby doesn't change anything. I've made my decision. I'm with Brittany now and she's everything I need. Don't try to contact me. Let's keep this civil. Derek. The words didn't compute at first. They sat on the page like a foreign language, symbols her brain refused to translate. She read them again. Then again. The baby doesn't change anything. Her knees gave out. She caught herself against the counter, the granite cold and unforgiving beneath her palms. The divorce papers fluttered to the floor. She saw phrases through her blurring vision. Irreconcilable differences, petitioner, respondent, division of assets. Division of assets. Naomi's stomach dropped. She lunged for her phone and opened their banking app with trembling fingers. The joint checking account showed a balance of $47. The savings account, the one with nearly $80,000 they'd built together over 6 years of marriage, showed $1,200. He'd cleaned them out. She scrolled frantically through the transaction history. Withdrawals. Transfers. All authorized with his credentials, all happening over the past 2 weeks while she'd been staying with her mother in Atlanta, preparing for the baby's arrival. While she'd been washing tiny onesies and assembling a crib, Derek had been dismantling their entire life. No, 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 no. The word became a chant as she opened her laptop, logged into their business accounts. Johnson and Associates Consulting, the software consulting firm they'd built together from nothing, showed the same story. The operating account was nearly empty. The client retainer account, which should have held over $50,000, was gone. All of it. Gone. Naomi's phone rang. She grabbed it without looking, desperate to hear Derek's voice explaining that this was a mistake, a cruel joke, anything but reality. Hello? Mrs. Johnson? This is Karen from First National Bank. I'm calling about the mortgage payment that was returned for insufficient funds yesterday. We need. Naomi hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Then again. Creditors. Bill collectors. The walls closing in. She sank to the kitchen floor, her pregnant belly making it awkward, uncomfortable. The tiles were cold beneath her. The phone kept ringing. And in her hand, Derek's note mocked her with its casual cruelty. The baby doesn't change anything. Her daughter, their daughter, kicked again, stronger this time. Naomi pressed her hand to her stomach, tears streaming down her face. It's okay, she whispered. Mommy's got you. We're going to be okay. But she didn't believe it. How had she missed the signs? The late nights Derek claimed were client meetings. The new cologne. The way he'd stopped touching her belly, stopped asking about the baby's movements, stopped planning for their daughter's future. She'd blamed it on stress, on the pregnancy changing their dynamic, on 1,000 innocent explanations. She'd been so stupid. Naomi forced herself to stand, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. The crying could come later. Right now she needed information. She needed to understand the scope of the disaster. She found more evidence in Derek's home office, the room he'd insisted stay locked for client confidentiality. The drawers were mostly empty, but he'd left behind some papers. Hotel receipts dating back 8 months. Credit card statements showing charges at jewelry stores, expensive restaurants, weekend getaways. All while Naomi had been cutting coupons and shopping at discount stores to save for the baby. There was a photograph tucked in the desk drawer, half hidden beneath an old client file. Derek and a young woman, blonde, beautiful, laughing on a beach somewhere tropical. His arm was around her waist. Her head rested on his shoulder. The ease between them spoke of intimacy, of time spent together, of a relationship that was anything but new. Naomi flipped the photo over. Written on the back in Derek's handwriting, Brittany and me, Turks and Caicos, anniversary trip. Anniversary. They'd been together long enough to celebrate anniversaries. The nausea hit her hard and fast. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick, heaving into the toilet while her baby rolled and kicked, disturbed by her mother's distress. When the wave passed, Naomi sat on the cold tile floor, her back against the bathtub, and finally let herself cry. She cried for the marriage she'd thought was real. For the man she'd believed Derek to be. For the future she'd imagined, family dinners and birthday parties and growing old together. For the daughter who would grow up with a father who'd abandoned her before she was even born. But beneath the grief, something else began to burn. Something sharp and bright and unfamiliar. Anger. Derek had stolen from her. Not just money but time. Trust. Security. He'd left her pregnant and broke and alone, and he'd done it deliberately, coldly, with planning and forethought. The withdrawals hadn't been impulsive, they'd been strategic. He'd waited until she was out of town, too pregnant to travel easily, too vulnerable to fight back immediately. He thought she was helpless. He thought he'd won. Naomi pushed herself to her feet, using the bathtub edge for leverage. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a woman she barely recognized, face swollen from crying, eyes red, hair a mess. But beneath the devastation she saw something else. The woman she'd been before Derek. The woman who'd built a successful career before she'd ever met him. The woman who'd coded her first program at 16 and launched her first software product at 22. She'd made Derek a partner in her business because she'd loved him, because she'd believed in building something together. But the skills, the knowledge, the connections, those had been hers first. She'd gotten soft during the marriage, let Derek handle the client relationships while she focused on the technical work. Let him manage the finances while she prepared for motherhood. No more. Naomi returned to the kitchen and carefully gathered all the papers. The divorce filing, the note, the receipts, the photograph. She took photos of everything with her phone and uploaded them to a secure cloud storage. Then she searched online for divorce attorneys, specifically looking for ones who handled high-conflict cases involving financial fraud. Patricia Reeves's website showed a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an impressive track record. Her tagline read, "When they play dirty, we play to win." Perfect. Naomi called and left a message, her voice steady despite the chaos of the day. Then she called her mother. "Honey? I thought you were coming back tomorrow?" "Mom?" Naomi's voice cracked. "Derek left me. He filed for divorce and took all our money. I'm 7 months pregnant and he's gone." The silence on the other end lasted only a heartbeat before her mother's voice came back, steel beneath the softness. "Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. We'll figure this out. I can't just leave. I need to. You need to not be alone in that house tonight." Back. "I'll be there in 4 hours." After she hung up, Naomi stood in the kitchen one more time, looking at the home she'd decorated, the life she'd built. The photos on the wall showed a lie: happy couple, loving marriage, bright future. She wanted to smash every frame, burn every memory. Instead, she picked up the photograph of Derek and Brittany. She studied the woman's face, young, probably mid-20s. Pretty in an obvious way. She wore an expensive-looking necklace and designer sunglasses. Behind them, the beach resort looked exclusive. Who was Brittany? How had Derek met her? And how long had he been planning to trade his pregnant wife for a younger model? Naomi's phone buzzed. An email from Patricia Reeves's office. Available for consultation tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring all financial documents and evidence of marital assets. She replied immediately, "I'll be there." The baby kicked again, and this time Naomi smiled grimly. "You and me, little girl," she whispered to her belly. "We're going to be just fine. Better than fine. And your father is going to regret the day he walked away from us." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Because Derek had made a critical mistake. He'd assumed Naomi would crumble, would beg, would accept whatever scraps he was willing to throw her way. He'd forgotten who she'd been before him, and who she still was underneath the role of devoted wife. He'd forgotten that she was the one who'd built the business he'd just stolen from. That she was the one with the actual skills and industry reputation. That she'd made him relevant in a field where he'd been mediocre at best. Derek had taken everything he could carry. But he'd left behind the one thing that actually mattered, Naomi herself. And that would be his biggest mistake. Patricia Reeves's office occupied the entire 15th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel, and the kind of quiet confidence that came from winning. Naomi sat in the reception area, her hands folded over her pregnant belly, trying not to fidget. The morning sickness had been worse than usual, probably from stress, and she'd barely slept at her mother's house, her mind spinning through scenarios and consequences. Mrs. Johnson? Ms. Reeves will see you now. The attorney's office was corner-positioned with views of the city skyline. Patricia Reeves stood from behind a massive desk, extending her hand. She was exactly as her website photo suggested. 50s, impeccably dressed, eyes that missed nothing. Sit please. You sounded distressed on your message yesterday. Tell me everything. Naomi did. The words poured out in a rush. The divorce papers, the stolen money, the business accounts, the photograph, Brittany. She showed Patricia everything on her laptop. Bank statements, business records, the timeline of withdrawals. Patricia made notes on a legal pad, her expression never changing from professional neutrality. When Naomi finished, the attorney sat back in her chair. Your husband is either very stupid or very arrogant. Probably both. The financial manipulations are sloppy. He left a clear trail. We can trace every transaction. The timing of the withdrawals while you were out of state, combined with the pregnancy and joint business ownership, gives us excellent grounds for claims of fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Can we get the money back? Most of it, yes. It'll take time, but the law is on your side. However, Patricia leaned forward. I need you to understand something. Divorce is war. It's going to get ugly. He's already shown he's willing to cheat and steal. He'll lie in court. He'll try to paint you as a bad partner or claim the business was really his. You need to be prepared for that. I'm prepared. Good. Because my approach is aggressive. I don't settle for less than my clients deserve, and I don't let opposing counsel intimidate me. But that means you need to trust me completely and follow my advice exactly. Can you do that? Naomi met the attorney's eyes. Yes. Excellent. First, we're filing an emergency motion to freeze all remaining marital assets. Second, we're filing for full discovery of his finances. I want to know where every penny went. Third, I'm recommending you hire a private investigator. Why? Because I guarantee you there's more to this story. Men don't just wake up and decide to abandon their pregnant wives. This was planned. The woman, Brittany, we need to know everything about her. How they met. How long they've been together. Whether there are other women. Whether he's got assets we don't know about. Information is power, Naomi. The more we have, the better we fight. Patricia slid a business card across the desk. Tony Mills. Best PI in the city. Tell him I sent you. He'll take care of you. 2 days later, Naomi sat in a coffee shop across from Tony Mills. He was in his early 40s, nondescript in the way that probably served him well in his profession. Average height, regular features, forgettable face. But his eyes were sharp, and he listened without interrupting as Naomi explained the situation. I've worked with Patricia for years, Tony said when she finished. She doesn't send me clients unless there's something to find. And there's always something to find. Give me a week. I'll get you answers. What kind of answers? Where he's living. Who Brittany really is. What he's doing with your money. Whether this is his first affair or just the first one you caught. Everything. The week felt like a month. Naomi moved back into the house. She refused to let Derek run her out of her own home, and tried to establish some normalcy. She couldn't work on client projects without access to the business accounts, but she could plan. She made lists of contacts, potential new clients, strategies for rebuilding. Her mother visited daily, bringing food and moral support. Friends called, offering help. But Naomi felt disconnected from all of it, like she was watching her life happen to someone else. The only real moments were when the baby moved, reminding her that she wasn't alone, that she had someone depending on her. Tony called on day 6. We need to meet. In person. You're going to want to sit down for this. They met at the same coffee shop. Tony spread photographs across the table. Surveillance shots of Derek and Brittany entering and leaving a luxury condo building downtown. Brittany at a country club. Derek driving a new BMW that Naomi had never seen before. Brittany Walsh, Tony said, tapping one photo. 26 years old. Graduated from Yale 3 years ago. Works at Walsh Global Properties as a junior executive. And here's where it gets interesting. Walsh Global Properties is owned by her father, Harrison Walsh. The name meant nothing to Naomi. Tony pulled out his phone and showed her a Forbes article. Harrison Walsh. Net worth approximately $3 billion. One of the biggest commercial real estate developers in the country. He owns half the office buildings in this city alone. And Brittany is his only child. The coffee shop seemed to tilt. Naomi gripped the table edge. Derek's mistress is a billionaire's daughter? It gets better. I talked to some people at Walsh Global. Derek and Brittany met at a real estate investment conference 8 months ago. He presented himself as a successful tech entrepreneur, using your business credentials by the way. He deliberately pursued her. Multiple sources confirmed he was asking about her family background before he ever asked her out. He targeted her for her money. For her father's money, specifically. And here's the real kicker. Tony pulled out another document. Derek's been pitching Harrison Walsh on a big tech investment deal. A software platform for property management. He's using your actual work, Naomi. Code you developed, systems you designed. He's presenting it as his own creation and asking Walsh for a $10 million investment. Naomi's hands started shaking. That's my intellectual property. I own the copyrights. I know. Which means what Derek's doing isn't just unethical, it's fraud. He's stolen your work and is trying to sell it to a billionaire. And Harrison Walsh has apparently agreed in principle to the investment. They're supposed to sign contracts next month. The scope of Derek's betrayal kept expanding. It wasn't just about leaving her for a younger woman. He'd systematically stolen everything. Her money, her business, her work, and was using it all to con his way into a wealthy family. Does Brittany know? Naomi asked. About me? About the baby? Tony's expression turned grim. According to my sources, Derek told her that you two were separated before he met her. That the divorce was mutual and amicable. That there was no baby. She has no idea he was living with you, sleeping in your bed until 2 weeks ago. So Brittany was a victim too. Or at least partially. She'd still chosen to be with a married man, even if she didn't know all the details. But Naomi felt no sympathy for her. Brittany had Harrison Walsh's billions to cushion any heartbreak. Naomi had a drained bank account and a baby on the way. What else? She asked. Derek's living in a luxury condo, Brittany's paying the rent. He's driving a car she bought him. He's wearing clothes and a watch that she definitely purchased. The man hasn't spent his own money in months. He's positioning himself as a successful entrepreneur while living completely off her wealth. Tony showed her more photos. Derek at expensive restaurants. At charity galas in a tuxedo. At the country club playing golf with older men in expensive suits. Probably Harrison Walsh's associates. He's playing a role, Naomi said slowly. Pretending to be something he's not. Exactly. And when Harrison Walsh finds out Derek lied about his marriage, stole his wife's business, and is trying to defraud him with stolen intellectual property, that's going to be a problem. A big problem. An idea began forming in Naomi's mind. Dangerous. Potentially explosive. But fair. Can you prove all of this? She asked. Document everything. The theft of my work, the lies to Brittany about our marriage status, the timeline showing he was still living with me when they started dating? Already done. I've got bank records showing joint household expenses right up until 2 weeks ago. I've got testimony from neighbors who can confirm Derek was living in your house. I've got the intellectual property registrations in your name. It's airtight. Good. Keep digging. I want to know everything about Derek's relationship with Brittany and her father. Every meeting, every conversation, every promise Derek's made. Can you do that? Tony grinned. Oh, I can do that. But Naomi, what are you planning? She met his eyes. I'm planning to make sure everyone knows exactly who Derek really is. Starting with the billionaire whose daughter he's using. Patricia's going to love this. She lives for cases like this. Then let's give her everything she needs to destroy him. Over the next 2 weeks, Tony provided a constant stream of intelligence. Derek had told Harrison Walsh he'd developed revolutionary property management software worth millions. He'd shown prototypes, Naomi's prototypes with her code, her design, her years of work. He'd claimed to have multiple big-name clients ready to adopt the platform once it launched. All lies. The clients were Naomi's from before Derek had stolen the business accounts. The software was Naomi's, created during late nights and weekends while Derek watched television. Even the business plan Derek had presented was based on a proposal Naomi had written 2 years ago. He'd stolen her entire professional life and was selling it as his own. Patricia filed the divorce response with a countersuit for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, theft of intellectual property, and a dozen other claims. She also filed for emergency temporary support. Derek would be required to pay Naomi's living expenses while the divorce was pending. He's going to fight this, Patricia warned. He'll claim the business was joint property, that the work was collaborative, that he has as much right to it as you do. Let him try. I have every email, every code commit, every document that proves I created everything. He barely knows how to use Excel. Good. Because his attorney is going to paint you as bitter and vindictive. They'll say you're only filing these claims because he left you. We need to show the court that this is about justice, not revenge. But Naomi knew the truth. It was about both. She spent her days preparing for the baby's arrival and her nights documenting everything she'd created. Every line of code. Every client relationship. Every business strategy. She built an unassailable record of her work, her contributions, her ownership. And she waited. The baby's due date approached. Naomi's mother moved in temporarily to help. Friends organized meal trains and offered to attend doctor appointments. The support was overwhelming and humbling. Derek sent a single text message. Hope everything goes well with the delivery. Let me know when the baby arrives. As if he were a distant acquaintance instead of the father. As if he had any right to information about the daughter he'd already abandoned. Naomi blocked his number. 3 weeks before her due date, Tony called with the biggest development yet. Derek proposed to Brittany. Last night at some fancy restaurant. She said yes. And here's the thing, Harrison Walsh was there. He gave his blessing. They're planning a quick wedding, probably within a few months. Naomi's hand went to her belly. Her daughter kicked, strong and healthy. How quick? Sources say they want to do it before the end of summer. Walsh is apparently thrilled. He thinks Derek's this brilliant entrepreneur who's going to revolutionize his business. He's already talking about making Derek a partner in Walsh Global Properties after the wedding. A partner. In a billion-dollar company. Based entirely on lies. Naomi, this is bigger than divorce court now. If Derek marries into that family under false pretenses, if he gets access to Harrison Walsh's business resources based on stolen work, that's serious fraud. Criminal fraud, not just civil. Patricia had said the same thing in their last meeting. They had enough evidence to refer Derek's actions to the district attorney's office. But Patricia wanted to wait to build an even stronger case. Patience, the attorney had advised. Let him think he's winning. Let him get comfortable. And then we hit him with everything. Naomi understood the strategy. But patience was hard when her belly was huge, her ankles were swollen, and her bank account was still almost empty despite the court order for temporary support that Derek was fighting. Keep watching him, she told Tony. I want to know the second Harrison Walsh finds out the truth about Derek. And if he doesn't find out on his own? Naomi smiled, though there was no humor in it. Then we'll make sure he does. Because Derek had made a crucial error. He'd chosen to con a billionaire. A man with resources, investigators and lawyers of his own. A man who didn't appreciate being lied to. A man whose daughter Derek was planning to marry based on completely false pretenses. Harrison Walsh was going to be a very useful ally. He just didn't know it yet. Labor started at 2 a.m, 3 days after Naomi's due date. The contractions woke her from restless sleep, sharp and insistent. She lay in bed for several minutes, timing them on her phone before accepting that this was real. Her mother appeared in the doorway before Naomi could call for her. I heard you moving around. Is it time? I think so. The drive to the hospital was quiet. Naomi focused on her breathing while her mother handled the logistics, calling ahead, grabbing the hospital bag, keeping up a steady stream of calm chatter that Naomi barely heard. The contractions were getting stronger, closer together. The baby was coming. 16 hours later, Naomi held her daughter for the first time. Zoe Michelle Johnson, 7 pounds 4 ounces with a full head of dark hair and her mother's eyes. Perfect. Complete. Worth everything. Her mother cried. The nurses cooed. And Naomi felt something shift inside her, a fundamental rearrangement of priorities and purposes. This tiny person depended on her completely. Everything Naomi did from this moment forward would be for Zoe, including destroying Derek. Her phone buzzed with messages, friends congratulating her, Patricia asking for updates, Tony checking in. But nothing from Derek. No call. No text. No acknowledgement that his daughter had been born. Naomi posted a single photo to social media. Zoe's tiny hand wrapped around her finger. The caption read simply, Welcome to the world, Zoe Michelle. August 14th. 7 pounds 4 ounces. Perfect. Within minutes, comments flooded in. Love and congratulations from friends and family. And then, buried in the responses, a comment from someone whose profile showed a pretty blonde woman. Brittany Walsh. Oh my gosh, congratulations. She's beautiful. Derek must be so happy. The comment sat there like a bomb. Naomi stared at it, her exhaustion-fogged brain trying to process the implications. Brittany had no idea Derek wasn't at the hospital. She thought he was here, playing the proud father, supporting his wife through delivery. She still didn't know. Derek was living a complete double life, and he'd managed to keep both women in the dark about each other. The divorce filing was public record, but Brittany clearly hadn't checked. And Derek certainly hadn't told her the truth about when he'd left. Naomi took a screenshot of the comment and sent it to Tony and Patricia with a message. Evidence that Brittany still doesn't know Derek lied about separation timeline. Let's keep building the case. She deleted Brittany's comment without responding and made her social media private. Then she turned off her phone and focused on learning to nurse Zoe, to change her tiny diapers, to decipher her different cries. The first week home was a blur of exhaustion and hormones and overwhelming love. Naomi's mother stayed helping with everything, but it was still the hardest thing Naomi had ever done. Zoe nursed constantly. She barely slept. And Naomi's body ached from delivery, from healing, from the sheer physical toll of growing and birthing a human. On day 8, Derek finally called. Naomi's mother answered her phone before Naomi could stop her. "What do you want?" her mother said coldly. Naomi couldn't hear Derek's response, but her mother's face went hard. "You have some nerve. You abandon your wife while she's pregnant, steal her money, and now you want to see the baby? No, you lost that right. All contact goes through the attorneys." She hung up. Then she hugged Naomi while Naomi cried angry, exhausted tears. "He doesn't get to do this," her mother said fiercely. "He doesn't get to show up whenever it's convenient and play father. You're doing this alone because he chose to leave. He doesn't get the good parts without doing the work." 2 weeks after Zoe's birth, Naomi met with Patricia again. Her mother watched the baby while Naomi made the trek downtown, still moving carefully, still healing. "You look tired," Patricia observed. "I have a newborn." "Fair point. Here's where we are. Derek's attorney has responded to our filings with predictable denials. He claims the business was always joint property, that the withdrawals were his fair share of marital assets, that your intellectual property claims are exaggerated. He's also filed for joint custody of Zoe and wants child support payments reduced to practically nothing." Naomi felt rage flash through her exhaustion. "He abandoned us. He's never even met Zoe." "I know. And the court will know too. We have records showing he knew about the pregnancy, chose to file for divorce anyway, and has made zero effort to be involved. His custody claim won't hold up. But Naomi, I need to warn you, this is going to get nastier before it gets better." "What do you mean?" Patricia slid a document across the desk. "Derek's attorney sent this over yesterday. They're claiming you have borderline personality disorder, that you're emotionally unstable, that Derek left because you were abusive and manipulative. They're going to argue that you're an unfit mother and that Zoe should primarily be in Derek's care." The words were so absurd that Naomi almost laughed. "I've never been diagnosed with anything. I'm not abusive. This is completely fabricated." "Of course it is. It's a standard smear tactic in high-conflict divorces. They're trying to make you defend yourself to put you on the back foot. We're going to get ahead of it. I'm recommending you do a psychological evaluation with a court-approved therapist. We'll prove you're mentally sound, emotionally stable, and an excellent mother. It'll cost money, but it's worth it to shut down their accusations." Naomi agreed. Over the next month, she underwent a comprehensive psychological evaluation while also caring for Zoe, meeting with Tony to review his ongoing investigation, and somehow finding time to sleep a few hours each night. The psychologist's report came back exactly as expected. Naomi was mentally healthy, showing normal stress responses to a difficult divorce and new motherhood, with no signs of personality disorders or instability. The report noted her strong coping skills, supportive family relationships, and clear focus on her daughter's well-being. "Derek's attorney won't like this," Patricia said with satisfaction. "But there's nothing they can do. The facts are the facts." Meanwhile, Tony continued tracking Derek's movements. The surveillance reports painted a picture of a man living a fantasy life. Derek and Brittany attended charity galas, went to expensive restaurants, spent weekends at the Walsh family's vacation homes. Derek drove luxury cars, wore designer clothes, and presented himself as a successful tech entrepreneur. All funded by Brittany's money. He hasn't had a single business meeting that wasn't arranged through Harrison Walsh's connections, Tony reported during one of their weekly updates. He's not actually working. He's living off Brittany and planning his big score, the $10 million investment from Walsh Global Properties. When's that supposed to happen? Contract signing is scheduled for October 15th. About 6 weeks from now. Walsh's attorneys are doing due diligence, but Derek's provided them with falsified documents showing him as the creator and owner of your software platform. Unless something stops this, he's going to walk away with $10 million for work you did. Naomi looked down at Zoe sleeping in her arms. Her daughter was 8 weeks old now, starting to smile, to coo, to show her personality. She deserved a mother who could provide for her, who could show her that lying and cheating didn't win in the end. Is there enough evidence now? Naomi asked Patricia, who was also on the call. More than enough. We can prove Derek stole your intellectual property. We can prove he lied to Brittany about your marriage status. We can prove he's attempting to defraud Harrison Walsh. The question is, how do you want to proceed? Naomi had been thinking about this for weeks. I want to tell Harrison Walsh the truth. Directly. With evidence. Before Derek gets his money. That's risky, Patricia warned. If Walsh doesn't believe you, or if he decides to protect Derek for his daughter's sake, you'll have shown your hand for nothing. But if he does believe me? If he pulls the investment and exposes Derek? Then Derek loses everything. The money, the relationship, his reputation. It would be the most effective revenge possible. It's not revenge, Naomi corrected. It's justice. Derek is committing fraud. Harrison Walsh deserves to know before he signs a contract based on lies. Tony leaned forward. I have a contact who works in Walsh's legal department. I can get the evidence to the right person. Someone who'll make sure Walsh sees it and understands the implications. Do it, Naomi said. And let's time it perfectly. Right before the contract signing. Give Walsh all the evidence but not enough time for Derek to spin his way out of it. Patricia smiled. You're learning. That's exactly the right strategy. Hit him when he thinks he's untouchable. Over the next month they prepared the evidence package. Tony compiled surveillance reports, financial documents, and testimony from witnesses who could confirm Derek's deception. Patricia drafted a legal memo explaining the fraud and intellectual property theft. Naomi provided technical documentation proving she created the software Derek was trying to sell. Commit histories, design documents, emails, everything. The package was bulletproof. Harrison Walsh would see exactly what kind of man was planning to marry his daughter. Naomi spent her days caring for Zoe and her nights working on rebuilding her business. She couldn't access the company accounts Derek had frozen in the divorce proceedings, but she could reach out to old contacts, let them know she was available for consulting work. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Clients she'd worked with for years wanted to hire her again. They'd always known she was the real talent behind Johnson & Associates. Several offered advances on projects, understanding her financial situation. By October, Naomi had enough work to support herself and Zoe. She was exhausted, working during Zoe's naps and after bedtime, but she was surviving. More than surviving, she was beginning to thrive again. Derek sent child support payments inconsistently and in amounts far below what was owed. Patricia filed contempt motions. Derek's attorney argued he couldn't afford more because his business was struggling. The irony was bitter. The business was struggling because Naomi had built it and he didn't know how to run it without her. On October 10th, 5 days before the scheduled contract signing with Walsh Global Properties, Tony's contact in Walsh's legal department received the evidence package. 24 hours later, Harrison Walsh personally called a meeting with Derek. Tony's source reported that Walsh brought his head of legal, his head of security, and 2 other executives. They questioned Derek for 3 hours about the property management software, asking technical questions Derek couldn't answer. They asked about his marriage timeline, his business history, his credentials. Derek apparently claimed everything was a misunderstanding. That he and Naomi had been separated emotionally for years. That the intellectual property was jointly developed. That any inconsistencies in his story were just miscommunications. But Harrison Walsh was a billionaire who'd built his empire on reading people and identifying liars. And Derek had just been caught in multiple lies with documented evidence. The meeting ended with Walsh calling off the contract signing indefinitely pending further investigation. Derek left the Walsh Global Properties building at 6 p.m., his face pale, his hands shaking. Tony's surveillance team followed him to his luxury condo, Brittany's condo, where Derek and Brittany had a screaming argument that the neighbors later reported hearing. By midnight, Derek had moved out. By morning the engagement was over. And by noon, Harrison Walsh's attorneys had sent a letter to Derek's attorney informing him that Walsh Global Properties was considering criminal fraud charges. Patricia called Naomi with the news. It worked. It all worked. Derek's entire house of cards is collapsing. Naomi held Zoe close, feeling her daughter's warmth, her trust, her complete dependence. Good, she said simply. Now let's make sure he never gets back up. The fallout from Harrison Walsh's discovery was spectacular and swift. Within days, news spread through the business community. Derek Johnson had been exposed trying to defraud Walsh Global Properties, one of the most powerful real estate development companies in the country. His professional reputation disintegrated overnight. Contacts stopped returning his calls. Clients terminated their contracts. The few remaining business relationships evaporated like water on hot asphalt. Naomi watched it happen through Tony's surveillance reports and Patricia's legal updates. She felt no guilt, no sympathy. Derek had done this to himself by choosing to lie and steal and cheat. The consequences were his own making. Harrison Walsh is furious, Tony reported during their weekly meeting. Not just because Derek tried to con him, but because Derek manipulated his daughter. Walsh is very protective of Brittany. The fact that Derek lied to her about being separated, that he used her for her money and connections, Walsh takes that personally. Is he pressing criminal charges? His attorneys are considering it. They've referred the matter to the district attorney's office. Whether the DA actually files charges depends on how strong they think the case is. Patricia added, the civil case is moving forward regardless. Walsh's legal team has contacted me. They want to cooperate in proving Derek's intellectual property theft. They're willing to provide their records, testimony, everything. Having Walsh Global Properties as an ally in this case is huge. Naomi adjusted Zoe in her arms. Her daughter was 3 months old now, alert and curious, starting to reach for objects and track movement with her eyes. Every milestone felt bittersweet, joy at Zoe's development, anger that Derek was missing it all by his own choice. What about Brittany? Naomi asked. Is she involved in any of this? She's devastated from what my sources say. She genuinely loved Derek or thought she did. She believed his lies about being a successful entrepreneur. She had no idea he was using her to get to her father's money. Walsh has apparently sent her on an extended European vacation to get away from the scandal. Part of Naomi felt sorry for Brittany. Being lied to, manipulated, used, she understood those feelings intimately. But Brittany had Harrison Walsh's billions to cushion her heartbreak. She'd recover in luxury while Naomi struggled to pay bills and care for an infant alone. The sympathy only went so far. We need to keep building evidence, Patricia said, bringing them back to business. Derek's attorney is fighting everything. They're claiming Walsh is lying to cover up his own investment mistakes. They're saying Derek really did create the software. They're even suggesting you colluded with Walsh to destroy Derek's reputation. That's insane. Of course it is. But it's their only play. They have to discredit the evidence somehow. So we need to make our case absolutely airtight. Tony, what else can you find? Tony consulted his notes. I'm tracking Derek's financial movements since the separation. He's burned through money fast. He was living large on Brittany's dime and now that's gone. He's behind on rent at a much cheaper apartment. His new BMW got repossessed last week. He's in serious financial trouble. Can we prove he spent marital assets on personal luxuries for himself and Brittany? Patricia asked. Absolutely. I've got credit card statements, bank records, receipts. He bought a $5,000 suit at Nordstrom in August. A $2,000 watch. Expensive jewelry that he definitely wasn't giving to Naomi. All using money from accounts that should have been split equitably in the divorce. Patricia made notes. That strengthens our claims for reimbursement and sanctions. What about the business? Johnson and Associates? Collapsing. Derek's lost about 80% of the client base. The few remaining clients are there because they signed long-term contracts and haven't found a way out yet. Revenue is way down. The business is essentially worthless now. Good, Naomi said, surprising herself with the coldness in her own voice. Then she corrected, I mean not good. But he destroyed something I built so he doesn't get to profit from the corpse. Completely understandable, Patricia assured her. Now let's talk about your side of things. You've been rebuilding independently, working with old clients under your own name. How's that going? Better than expected. Naomi pulled up her laptop, showing Patricia the spreadsheet she'd been maintaining. I've got 6 regular consulting clients now, all paying well. I'm working on a new version of the property management software, completely from scratch, new code, new design, so there's no question of ownership. 2 potential clients have expressed serious interest in licensing it. Excellent. We'll use that to show the court that you're the real talent, the actual creator. Derek had nothing without you. Your success post-separation proves that. Over the next several weeks, the legal proceedings intensified. Derek's attorney filed motion after motion, trying to dismiss the intellectual property claims, trying to reduce child support obligations, trying to force Naomi to give Derek access to Zoe. Patricia shot down each one with carefully documented evidence and legal precedent. The custody fight was particularly ugly. Derek claimed he wanted to be involved in Zoe's life. He requested visitation, weekend custody, vacation time. But when Patricia pressed for details about when Derek planned to actually see his daughter, his attorney couldn't provide a schedule. Derek had no nursery set up in his apartment. No crib, no diapers, no baby supplies. He'd made no effort to learn about infant care or attend any parenting classes. The judge was unimpressed. At a preliminary hearing, she looked directly at Derek and said, "Mr. Johnson, your daughter is 4 months old. You've never met her. You've made no child support payments. You've shown no interest in her well-being. Why exactly should I grant you custody rights?" Derek's attorney stammered about his client wanting to be a father, about Naomi being vindictive, about needing time to establish a relationship. The judge shut him down. "Your client had 9 months to prepare for fatherhood. He had 4 months since the birth to make an effort. He's done nothing. Until Mr. Johnson demonstrates actual commitment to this child's welfare, consistent support payments, appropriate living arrangements, completion of parenting education, I'm not inclined to order custody time. Supervised visitation only if Ms. Johnson agrees." Which she's not required to do. Naomi agreed to exactly nothing. Derek didn't get to waltz back into their lives when it was convenient. He'd made his choice. He could live with the consequences. Outside the courthouse, Derek tried to approach Naomi. His attorney grabbed his arm, but Derek shook him off and walked over to where Naomi stood with Patricia. "Naomi, please. Can we just talk for a minute?" "No." She didn't even look at him. "She's my daughter too. I have rights." "You have nothing." Naomi finally met his eyes. "You abandoned us. You stole from me. You lied to everyone. You don't get to play victim now. I made mistakes, okay? I was confused. The affair with Brittany just happened. I didn't mean." "Stop. Stop talking." Patricia stepped between them. "Mr. Johnson, you're in violation of court orders by attempting direct contact with my client. Walk away now or I'll have the bailiff arrest you for contempt." Derek's face flushed. For a moment, Naomi thought he might argue, might make a scene. But his attorney pulled him away and they left. Naomi watched him go, this man she'd once loved, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Tony's investigation continued to bear fruit. He discovered Derek had opened credit cards in the business's name without Naomi's knowledge, another form of fraud. He found evidence that Derek had been planning the affair with Brittany for months before actually leaving Naomi, making lists of what he'd need to do, how he'd extract money from the business, when he'd file for divorce. It had all been calculated, premeditated. Derek hadn't made an impulsive mistake. He'd systematically destroyed his marriage and stolen from his wife with full awareness of what he was doing. "This is good for us," Patricia explained. "It shows intent. It proves malice. The judge will look at this and see a man who deliberately harmed his pregnant wife for financial gain. That impacts everything: property division, spousal support, child support, attorney's fees." In December, Harrison Walsh's attorneys contacted Patricia with an update. The district attorney's office had decided to file criminal fraud charges against Derek for his attempted theft of intellectual property and his deceptive business practices. The trial wouldn't happen for months, possibly over a year, but the charges were serious. Derek could face prison time. "How do you feel about that?" Patricia asked Naomi during their meeting. Naomi looked down at Zoe, now 5 months old, sitting in her lap and gumming a teething toy. "I feel like justice is finally happening. He committed crimes. He should face consequences. Even if it means Zoe's father goes to prison?" Zoe's father abandoned her before she was born. That man, she gestured vaguely toward the wider world where Derek existed, is a sperm donor. Nothing more. If he goes to prison, it's because of his own choices. Patricia nodded. "I needed to hear you say that. Because Derek's attorney is going to use this against you. They'll claim you're vindictive, that you want to hurt Derek, that you're using Zoe as a weapon. We need to be clear that this isn't about revenge, it's about holding a criminal accountable." "It's both," Naomi said honestly. "I won't lie. I want Derek to suffer consequences. I want him to feel a fraction of what I felt when he abandoned us. But that doesn't make the charges false. He committed fraud. He stole intellectual property. He lied to investors. Those are facts regardless of my feelings about them." "Good answer. Hold on to that clarity. Because this is going to get harder before it gets easier." By Christmas, the divorce proceedings had been ongoing for nearly 6 months. Naomi was exhausted, from caring for Zoe, from working her consulting business, from the constant stress of legal battles. But she was also stronger than she'd ever been. She'd survived Derek's betrayal. She'd built a new life from nothing. She'd protected her daughter and her rights. Derek, meanwhile, was barely scraping by. His apartment was in a bad neighborhood. His car was gone. His reputation was destroyed. He'd applied for regular jobs, retail, customer service, anything, but no one wanted to hire someone facing criminal fraud charges. He'd gone from luxury condos and BMWs to food stamps and bus passes in less than 6 months. Naomi refused to feel guilty about it. This was consequences, not cruelty. On Christmas Eve, Naomi sat in her living room with her mother and Zoe, watching her daughter discover the lights on the tree. Zoe was mesmerized, reaching for the twinkling colors, laughing when they reflected in her eyes. "She's beautiful," her mother said. "And you're doing an amazing job with her." "I'm trying." "You're succeeding. I know this year has been hell, but look at what you've built. Look at this baby. You did that alone. You survived him leaving. You're winning, honey." Naomi held Zoe close. "I am winning. But I'm not done yet. Not until the divorce is final. Not until every legal claim is settled. Not until Derek faces every consequence he deserves." Her mother smiled. "Then we'll keep fighting. As long as it takes." 2 days after Christmas, Tony called with news. Derek made another mistake. He tried to approach Brittany Walsh at a coffee shop. Begged her to take him back, said the fraud charges were all lies, claimed Naomi had ruined his life out of spite. What did Brittany do? Called security. Had him escorted out. Then called her father's attorneys to document the attempted contact. Derek's now facing a potential restraining order from the Walsh family. He's desperate. He's destroyed. And he did it to himself. Every choice, every lie, every theft, all him. You didn't ruin his life, Naomi. You just made sure everyone saw who he really was. That night, Naomi looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was tired, carrying the weight of single motherhood and legal battles and rebuilding a career. But she was also alive in a way she hadn't been during her marriage. Alert, focused, certain of her own strength. Derek had tried to break her. Instead, he'd freed her. And she was going to make damn sure he regretted that mistake for the rest of his life. The new year brought unexpected opportunities. In January, Naomi received an email from Gordon Chin, the CTO of a major property management company on the East Coast. She'd worked with him briefly years ago before her marriage on a small consulting project. "Naomi, I heard through industry channels that you're doing independent consulting again. I also heard about the unfortunate situation with your former business partner. I want you to know that everyone in the industry knows you were the real talent behind Johnson & Associates. We're looking for someone to develop a comprehensive property management platform, something that can scale to handle thousands of units across multiple properties. Based on your previous work, I think you'd be perfect for this. Would you be interested in discussing a contract? The budget is substantial. Best regards, Gordon." Naomi read the email 3 times before responding. This was exactly the kind of project she'd been dreaming about, high-profile, well-funded, career-defining. But it also meant months of intensive work while caring for a 6-month-old baby alone. She called her mother. "I got a huge opportunity, but I don't know if I can handle it. Tell me about it." Naomi explained the project, the scope, the potential. Her mother listened without interrupting. "Here's what I think," her mother said when Naomi finished. "You've been barely surviving on small consulting jobs. This is a chance to actually thrive. To show the entire industry that you're not just surviving Derek's betrayal, you're excelling because of your own skills. Can you afford to turn it down?" "Probably not. But I can't work 80-hour weeks with a baby." "No, but you can work reasonable hours with help. I'll move in temporarily. We'll hire a part-time nanny. You'll figure out a schedule. You've already proven you can do hard things, honey. This is just the next hard thing." The confidence in her mother's voice steadied Naomi's nerves. "Okay, I'll take the meeting." 2 weeks later, Naomi flew to New York for a day of meetings with Gordon and his team. Her mother stayed home with Zoe. It was the first time Naomi had been away from her daughter since birth, and the separation felt physically painful. But she forced herself to focus. The meetings went brilliantly. Gordon's team loved her ideas. They appreciated her direct communication style. And when they asked about her previous business partnership, Naomi answered honestly, "My former partner and I had very different values regarding honesty and intellectual property rights. We're no longer working together, but I'm confident in my ability to deliver exceptional results independently. By the end of the day, they'd offered her a contract worth $250,000 for 6 months of work. It was more money than Naomi had ever made in a year. She signed the contract on the plane ride home. Back in her city, the divorce proceedings ground forward. Derek's attorney was fighting every point, making the process as difficult and expensive as possible. But Patricia matched every move, documenting Derek's lies and financial manipulations with meticulous detail. In February, the court ordered Derek to pay $40,000 in temporary spousal support and $10,000 in child support, money he clearly didn't have. His attorney filed an appeal, claiming the amounts were excessive given Derek's current financial situation. Patricia's response was withering. Mr. Johnson's current financial situation is a direct result of his criminal fraud and theft of marital assets. He cannot benefit from his own wrongdoing by claiming poverty. The judge agreed. Derek's appeal was denied. Meanwhile, Naomi's new project was progressing well. She'd hired a part-time nanny, a wonderful woman named Grace who'd raised 4 children of her own. Grace came 3 days a week, allowing Naomi to focus on work while knowing Zoe was in good hands. The rest of the time, Naomi worked during nap times and after Zoe's bedtime. It was exhausting, but she was building something real. Something that was entirely hers. In March, Tony called with explosive news. Derek's getting married. Naomi's hand froze on her coffee cup. What? To a woman named Jennifer something. They've known each other for about 2 months. Wedding is next week, courthouse ceremony. My source says Derek's desperate. Jennifer comes from money, not Walsh-level wealth but comfortable. He's using the same playbook he used with Brittany. And this woman knows about the fraud charges? About the divorce. Apparently Derek told her a version of events where you're the villain and he's the victim. Said you made false accusations out of revenge. Jennifer believes him. Naomi sat back processing. Derek was doing it again. Finding a vulnerable woman with resources, lying about his past, manipulating his way into her life. It was almost impressive in its audacity. Should I warn her? Naomi asked. That's up to you. But legally, Patricia might advise against direct contact. It could be seen as harassment. Naomi called Patricia immediately. Don't contact her, the attorney said firmly. Derek's new relationship isn't your problem. Focus on your own case. If this Jennifer woman gets hurt, that's on Derek, not you. You're not responsible for saving every woman from his lies. But, no buts, you have a daughter to protect and a career to build. Derek's new marriage is likely a desperate attempt to find financial support and maybe make himself look stable for the custody proceedings. Don't let it distract you. Patricia was right. But Naomi couldn't shake the discomfort. She knew what it felt like to be deceived by Derek. Part of her wanted to warn Jennifer. But another part, the part that had learned to protect herself first, knew that getting involved would only create more problems. Derek married Jennifer in a quick courthouse ceremony the following week. Naomi saw photos on social media before Jennifer's profile went private. A simple ceremony, no guests, Derek in a regular suit instead of the designer clothes he'd worn with Brittany. He looked diminished, desperate. Nothing like the confident man who'd abandoned Naomi months earlier. In April, Harrison Walsh's attorneys dropped another bomb. They discovered that Derek had attempted to sell the intellectual property, Naomi's software code, to another company after Walsh had pulled out of the deal. He tried to make the sale under a fake company name, using forged documents. This is additional fraud, Patricia explained. It strengthens both the criminal case and our civil claims. Derek's digging himself deeper with every move. The criminal trial was scheduled for September. The divorce trial, the final determination of asset division, spousal support, child support and custody, was scheduled for October. 8 more months of fighting. 8 more months of legal fees and stress and uncertainty. But Naomi was no longer the terrified pregnant woman who'd found divorce papers on her counter. She was a successful consultant with a major contract, a growing reputation and a beautiful daughter. She was winning, slowly but undeniably. In May, Derek filed a motion requesting joint custody of Zoe. His attorney argued that Derek had overcome his initial difficulties and was now ready to be an active father. They provided evidence of Derek's new marriage, his stable housing situation, and his enrollment in parenting classes. Patricia's response was devastating. She documented that Derek had paid almost nothing in child support, had missed every scheduled supervised visitation opportunity, and had shown no genuine interest in Zoe's development. The parenting classes he'd enrolled in? He'd attended 1 session out of 8. The motion was denied. But the attempt worried Naomi. Derek was getting more aggressive, more desperate. Men who felt cornered sometimes did dangerous things. Should I be concerned for our safety? She asked Tony. I don't think Derek's violent. Everything in his history suggests he's a liar and a thief, but not physically dangerous. Still, I can arrange for a security consultation if you want. Basic home security, awareness of surroundings, that kind of thing. Naomi agreed. They installed better locks, a security system, cameras at the front and back doors. Probably overkill, but it helped her sleep better. In June, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jennifer, Derek's new wife, called Patricia's office asking to speak with Naomi. She sounds young and scared, Patricia told Naomi. I didn't put her through, but I told her I'd pass along the message. She says she needs to talk to you about Derek. Says she's learned things that make her question everything. What should I do? Meet with her if you want. But do it at my office with me present. Don't meet her alone. We need to document whatever she tells us. 3 days later, Naomi sat in Patricia's conference room across from Jennifer Chin, a slight Asian woman in her late 20s who looked like she'd been crying for days. Thank you for seeing me, Jennifer began, her voice shaking. I know you don't owe me anything. But I need you to know I didn't know. About the baby, about the timing of your separation, about any of it. Derek lied to me about everything. What made you realize? Naomi kept her voice neutral, neither warm nor cold. His mail. Financial documents from the criminal case. I saw the dates. I saw evidence that he was living with you when he told me he'd been separated for over a year. I confronted him and he admitted some of it. Said he'd been confused, that his judgment was off. But then I found more. Evidence that he's lied to me about money, about his job prospects, about everything. Jennifer pulled papers from her purse. These are bank statements. He's been taking money from my account without permission. Small amounts at first, but it's escalated. He's stolen over $10,000 from me in 2 months. Patricia leaned forward. You understand we'll need to share this with the court? It's evidence of a pattern of financial fraud. I want you to share it. I want everyone to know what he is. I'm filing for annulment. My attorney says we have grounds based on fraud in the inducement. He lied about fundamental things to get me to marry him. Did Derek know about your financial situation before you got married? Naomi asked. Jennifer nodded miserably. I told him I had a trust fund from my grandparents. Not huge, but enough to be comfortable. He suddenly became very interested after that conversation. Started talking about marriage within weeks. It was the same pattern. Derek targeted women with money, lied his way into their lives and then stole from them. Naomi with the business accounts. Brittany with her father's wealth. Jennifer with her trust fund. A clear, documented pattern. I'm so sorry, Jennifer said, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry I married him. I'm sorry I believed his lies about you. I'm sorry I... Stop. Naomi's voice was firm but not unkind. Derek's lies aren't your fault. He's a skilled manipulator. He fooled me for years. You're doing the right thing now by telling the truth. They spent 2 more hours going over Jennifer's evidence, documenting everything. When Jennifer left, she looked lighter, like a weight had been lifted. This changes everything, Patricia said after Jennifer was gone. We now have a documented pattern of fraud targeting multiple women. The criminal case just got much stronger. And in the divorce proceedings, this proves Derek hasn't changed, hasn't learned, isn't capable of being a responsible parent or partner. Will Jennifer be okay? She'll recover. She's smart, she caught on quickly, and she's taking action. Unlike Brittany, who just disappeared in shame, Jennifer's fighting back. She'll be fine. That night, Naomi held Zoe close, breathing in her baby's smell, feeling her warm weight in her arms. Zoe was 8 months old now, sitting up on her own, babbling constantly, on the verge of crawling. She was perfect and innocent and deserved so much better than a father like Derek. You're going to grow up knowing your worth, Naomi whispered to her sleeping daughter. You're going to know that women don't need men who lie and steal and cheat. You're going to see your mother stand up for herself and win. That's the legacy I'm giving you. The next morning, Patricia filed an amended petition in the divorce case, including all the new evidence from Jennifer's testimony. She also filed a motion to increase spousal support and child support, arguing that Derek had demonstrated continued financial fraud and remained capable of earning income despite his claims of poverty. Derek's attorney tried to fight it, but the pattern was too clear. Multiple women, multiple thefts, multiple lies. The judge was running out of patience with Derek's excuses. In July, Derek's attorney dropped out of the case, citing irreconcilable differences with the client. Translation: Derek couldn't pay his legal fees and had probably been lying to his own attorney too. Derek had to represent himself in court. He was terrible at it. At a hearing in early August, Derek tried to argue that Naomi was vindictive, that she'd turned everyone against him, that he deserved another chance. He rambled, went off topic, made accusations he couldn't support with evidence. The judge stopped him mid-sentence. "Mr. Johnson, I've reviewed the evidence in this case extensively. You've lied repeatedly to this court. You've failed to comply with court orders. You've committed crimes. And now you want sympathy? That's not how this works. This hearing is adjourned. I'll issue my ruling on the pending motions within 2 weeks." Derek left the courtroom looking defeated. Naomi felt a surge of satisfaction. She was going to win. Completely and undeniably. And Derek was going to lose everything he'd stolen and more. Justice, she was learning, tasted sweet. The judge's ruling came down on August 19th, via a 20-page written decision that Patricia called the most thorough destruction of a defendant I've seen in 15 years. The court found that Derek had committed systematic financial fraud against Naomi during their marriage, stolen marital assets and intellectual property, lied repeatedly to the court and to multiple women, failed to meet his obligations as a father, demonstrated no remorse or rehabilitation. The ruling ordered Derek to pay Naomi $120,000 in reimbursement for stolen assets, pay $3,500 per month in child support, backdated to Zoe's birth, pay $4,000 per month in spousal support for 5 years, relinquish all claims to Johnson and Associates and Naomi's intellectual property, cover all of Naomi's legal fees, approximately $45,000, accept supervised visitation with Zoe only, with no pathway to custody. "He can't pay this," Naomi said after reading the decision 3 times. "He doesn't have this kind of money." "Doesn't matter," Patricia replied. "These are court orders. If he doesn't pay, we garnish wages, seize assets, file contempt charges. The debt doesn't go away just because he's broke. He'll be paying this off for years, possibly decades." Good. The criminal trial was scheduled for September 15th. Derek's public defender was overworked and inexperienced. The prosecution, on the other hand, had extensive resources, particularly because Harrison Walsh had provided his legal team to assist with the case. Walsh wanted Derek prosecuted to the fullest extent possible. Tony continued monitoring Derek's activities. The surveillance reports showed a man in freefall. Derek's marriage to Jennifer had been annulled within weeks. He'd lost his apartment and was couch surfing with acquaintances. He had no car, no prospects, no future. He tried to contact Brittany Walsh again, Tony reported in early September. Showed up at Walsh Global Properties asking to see her. Security escorted him out. Walsh's attorneys filed a restraining order. Derek's not allowed within 500 feet of any Walsh family member or property. "Is he dangerous?" Naomi asked, thinking of Zoe sleeping in the next room. "Desperate, not dangerous. But I'm keeping close watch. If he makes any move toward you or the baby, we'll know immediately." The criminal trial lasted 3 days. Naomi attended every session, sitting in the gallery with Patricia, watching Derek try to defend himself. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: financial records, testimony from multiple victims, Naomi, Jennifer, and a third woman who'd come forward, expert witnesses confirming the intellectual property theft, and Harrison Walsh himself testifying about Derek's attempted fraud. Derek's defense was that he'd made mistakes, but hadn't intended to hurt anyone. He claimed he was a victim of circumstances, of bad luck, of vindictive women who'd turned against him. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes before returning guilty verdicts on all counts: fraud, theft, identity theft, and unlawful use of another person's intellectual property. Sentencing was scheduled for October. Naomi felt vindicated but not celebratory. This was justice, but it was also sad. Sad that Derek had thrown away everything for greed and lies, sad that Zoe would grow up knowing her father was a convicted criminal. But she didn't regret the prosecution. Derek had earned every consequence. In early October, between the conviction and sentencing, something unexpected happened. Harrison Walsh requested a meeting with Naomi. They met at a coffee shop, Walsh accompanied by his head of legal. He was in his 60s, distinguished-looking, with the kind of presence that came from decades of power and success. "Ms. Johnson, thank you for meeting me. I wanted to apologize personally." Naomi blinked. "Apologize? For what? My daughter. Brittany. She was used as a tool to hurt you. If I'd done better due diligence on Derek Johnson before allowing him into our lives, perhaps some of this pain could have been avoided. Mr. Walsh, you didn't know. Derek's a skilled liar. Perhaps. But I pride myself on reading people, on protecting my family. I failed in this case. And you paid the price. He slid a folder across the table. I'd like to make amends in some small way. My company has reviewed the property management platform you're developing. It's excellent work, far superior to what Derek tried to sell me. I'd like to license it for Walsh Global Properties. The terms are outlined in this proposal. Naomi opened the folder. The licensing fee was substantial, $300,000 annually for 5 years with options for renewal. It would transform her consulting business into something much bigger. This is generous. It's fair compensation for superior work. I'm also prepared to invest in your company if you decide to expand. Not a controlling stake, you'd maintain full ownership and creative control. But capital to hire staff, develop additional products, whatever you need to grow. Naomi looked at this powerful man, this billionaire who could have simply walked away from the whole mess. Instead, he was offering her opportunity, resources, respect. Why? She asked directly. Walsh smiled slightly. Because you handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. Because you protected your daughter. Because you built something valuable despite Derek trying to destroy you. I respect that. I'd like to see you succeed. What about Brittany? How is she? Healing. Slowly. She's embarrassed, hurt, angry at herself for being fooled. But she's young. She'll recover. And perhaps she's learned to be more careful about the men she trusts. He paused. She asked me to tell you she's sorry? For her part in the pain you experienced. Naomi didn't know what to say to that. Brittany's apology felt genuine, delivered through her father. But it didn't change the past. Tell her I hope she finds happiness. Real happiness with someone honest. Walsh nodded. I will. Now about this proposal, I'll need your answer within the week. My attorneys can work with yours on the details. After Walsh left, Naomi sat in the coffee shop for a long time, staring at the proposal. This was more than a business deal. It was validation. Proof that her work had value, that she had value independent of Derek or any man. She called Patricia. Harrison Walsh just offered me a major licensing deal and potential investment. Take it. Obviously take it. His due diligence will be thorough, he's not going to make the same mistake twice. If he thinks your platform is worth that money, it absolutely is. Naomi signed the deal 3 days later. With the Walsh contract and her existing consulting work, her annual income would be close to $700,000. She'd gone from broke and pregnant on her kitchen floor to financially secure and professionally respected in less than a year. Derek's sentencing hearing arrived on October 23rd. Naomi attended with Patricia. The courtroom was packed. Victims, attorneys, reporters who'd been following the case. The prosecutor recommended 4 years in prison. Derek's public defender argued for probation and community service. The judge listened to both sides, then turned to Derek. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Derek stood. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I know that. But I'm not a bad person. I got caught up in things. I never meant to hurt anyone. I'm asking for mercy. I have a daughter. I want to be part of her life. The judge's expression didn't change. Mr. Johnson, you've stood in this courtroom multiple times claiming you want to be a father. Yet you've paid almost no child support. You've attended no visitation sessions. You've shown no interest in your daughter's welfare. Your claims of wanting to be a father ring hollow. She paused, looking at Derek with obvious distaste. You targeted vulnerable women, lied to them, stole from them, and showed no remorse. You attempted to defraud one of the most respected businessmen in this state. You've lied to this court repeatedly. You are, quite simply, a predator who uses charm and deception instead of force. Your Honor, I'm not finished. I've considered the prosecutor's recommendations, the victim impact statements, and your complete lack of rehabilitation. I'm sentencing you to 3 years in state prison on the fraud charges, and 2 additional years for the intellectual property theft and identity theft, to run consecutively. 5 years total. Derek's face went white. Your Honor, please. Furthermore, upon release, you'll serve 5 years of supervised probation. You will have no contact with any of your victims unless they explicitly consent in writing. You will continue making court-ordered payments for child support and restitution, and any failure to pay will result in additional charges. Take him into custody. Derek was handcuffed and led away. He looked back at the courtroom once, his eyes finding Naomi's. She saw desperation there, pleading as if she might somehow intervene. She looked away. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered around. Naomi gave a brief statement that Patricia had prepared. Justice has been served today. I hope other women who've experienced financial fraud and manipulation will see this outcome and know that the law protects them. Thank you. She didn't mention Derek by name. He didn't deserve that acknowledgement. That night, Naomi sat in the nursery watching Zoe sleep. Her daughter was 10 months old now, pulling herself up to stand, saying "Mama" and "No" and babbling constantly. She was beautiful and perfect and entirely unaware that her father would spend the next 5 years in prison. How would Naomi explain it when Zoe was old enough to ask? The truth seemed cruel. But lies seemed worse. She'd figure it out. The same way she'd figured out everything else. One day at a time. One challenge at a time. And she'd do it successfully because she'd already proven she could survive anything. The divorce was scheduled for finalization in November. Just one more month. One more legal proceeding. And then it would truly be over. Naomi allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in over a year. Hope. Not just hope for survival, but hope for thriving. For building something extraordinary. For showing Zoe that strength and integrity mattered more than anything else. Derek had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her to become someone better than she'd ever been with him. And that, Naomi thought as she turned off the nursery light, was the sweetest revenge of all. November arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made everything feel possible. Naomi stood in the empty office space she'd just leased, 3,000 square feet in a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. Her company's name was stenciled on the glass door, NJ Tech Solutions. "It's perfect," her mother said, walking through the space with Zoe on her hip. "Your own company. Your own office. Look at what you've built. We're not built yet. This is just the beginning." But Naomi smiled as she said it, feeling the weight of accomplishment. She'd used part of the Walsh licensing payment as capital to officially incorporate her business. She'd hired 2 developers, a project manager and a part-time office administrator. Small staff, but it was growth. Real growth. The divorce finalization hearing was scheduled for November 18th. After that, she'd be legally free of Derek forever. Patricia met with her the week before to review the final settlement terms. Derek's attorney, his new attorney, the 4th one he's had, is trying to renegotiate the debt payments. They're claiming Derek can't pay from prison. That's not my problem. Exactly right. The court already ruled. These are final judgments. They don't disappear just because Derek's incarcerated. In fact, the debt will continue accumulating interest. By the time he gets out, he'll owe even more. How much will it be? Patricia did some quick calculations. With interest, probably close to $300,000. Between the reimbursement, child support, spousal support, and legal fees. He'll be paying you until Zoe's in college. The final hearing was anticlimactic. Derek appeared via video link from prison, looking diminished in an orange jumpsuit. His new attorney made a perfunctory argument about the financial obligations being excessive. The judge denied the motion without discussion. "Mr. Johnson, this court has thoroughly examined this case over the past year. Your actions were calculated, fraudulent, and cruel. The financial obligations are consequences of your choices. They stand as ordered. Is there anything else?" Derek's voice came through the speakers, thin and defeated. "Can I at least have phone contact with my daughter?" The judge looked at Naomi. "Ms. Johnson, what are your wishes regarding phone contact?" Naomi had thought about this extensively. Part of her wanted to deny Derek everything. He'd abandoned Zoe before birth, shown no interest in her life, made no effort to be a father. But another part of her thought about Zoe years from now, asking if her mother had kept her father away. "Monthly supervised phone calls," Naomi said. "Through a court-approved service. Derek can speak to Zoe, but I'll be monitoring the conversations. If he says anything inappropriate or upsetting, the privilege is revoked." The judge nodded. "Reasonable. Mr. Johnson, you're granted monthly supervised phone contact with your daughter, contingent on Ms. Johnson's oversight. If you violate this privilege, you'll lose it." "Understood." "Yes, Your Honor." "Then this case is concluded. The marriage of Derek Johnson and Naomi Johnson is hereby dissolved. All previous orders regarding child support, spousal support, and restitution remain in full effect. This court is adjourned." And just like that, it was over. Naomi walked out of the courthouse a free woman. Divorced. Financially secure. professionally successful, mother to a beautiful daughter. Everything Derek had tried to take from her, she'd rebuilt stronger. How do you feel? Patricia asked as they stood on the courthouse steps. Lighter. Like I've been carrying a weight and just put it down. You earned that feeling. You fought like hell for it. Patricia extended her hand. It's been an honor representing you, Naomi. I mean that. Most people would have crumbled under what you faced. You thrived. They shook hands and Naomi felt the finality of it. This chapter of her life, the Derek chapter, was closed. She went to her new office and worked for hours, coding and designing and building. Zoe played in the corner on a soft mat, surrounded by toys. Grace, the nanny, handled feedings and diaper changes while Naomi focused on her platform. The work was satisfying in a way her marriage never had been. Creating something from nothing. Solving problems. Seeing results. By December, NJ Tech Solutions had landed 3 more major clients. The company was profitable. Naomi had a waiting list of potential clients wanting her services. She also started receiving messages from other women who'd been defrauded by partners, who'd had their work stolen, who'd been left broke and pregnant and desperate. They'd read articles about Derek's trial and Naomi's victory. They wanted to know how she'd survived. Naomi responded to each message personally, offering advice and resources. Sometimes just offering solidarity. You're not alone, you're not crazy, you deserve justice. She realized she had a platform beyond just her business. She had a story that could help others. In January, a local women's business organization asked Naomi to speak at their annual conference. She almost declined. Public speaking terrified her. But then she thought about those women who'd messaged her and she agreed. Standing in front of 200 women in a hotel ballroom, Naomi told her story. She didn't sugarcoat it. She described finding the divorce papers, the stolen money, the pregnancy alone. She described the investigation, the legal battles, the slow process of proving Derek's fraud. And she described the victory. Not just the legal judgments but the personal victory of rebuilding her life into something better than before. Derek thought he was taking everything, Naomi concluded. But he didn't take my skills. He didn't take my determination. He didn't take my ability to create value. Those things were mine always, regardless of his actions. And once I remembered that, once I believed in myself again, I became unstoppable. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of women approached her, sharing their own stories, asking for advice, thanking her for speaking. One woman, probably in her 50s, took Naomi's hands. My husband stole from our business 20 years ago. I let him get away with it because I was scared to fight. Watching you win, knowing it's possible to win, it heals something in me. Thank you. Naomi hugged her, the stranger who understood. February brought more growth. NJ Tech Solutions hired 2 more developers. The office space was getting cramped. Naomi started looking at larger spaces, imagining a future where her company employed dozens of people. Zoe celebrated her first birthday with a small party, just family and close friends. No Derek. He sent a card through the prison mail system, addressed to Zoe but clearly written for Naomi to read. Dear Zoe, happy first birthday. I'm sorry I'm not there to celebrate with you. Daddy made some bad choices and is paying for them now. But I think about you every day. I hope when you're older you'll understand and maybe forgive me. Your father, Derek. Naomi read it once and filed it away in a folder labeled Zoe's Father, where she kept all of Derek's minimal communications. Zoe would decide someday if she wanted a relationship with him. But that was years away. For now, Zoe had a mother who adored her, a grandmother who doted on her, and a stable, loving home. That was more than enough. In March, Harrison Walsh invited Naomi to lunch. They met at an upscale restaurant, Walsh once again projecting that effortless power and confidence. Your platform is performing excellently for our properties, Walsh said. My team is very impressed. I'd like to discuss expanding our contract and potentially introducing you to some of my business associates who could use your services. I'd appreciate that. I'm also curious about your long-term plans. Do you intend to keep NJ Tech Solutions as a boutique consulting firm? Or are you thinking bigger? Naomi hadn't articulated her ambitions even to herself. But Walsh's question crystallized something. Bigger. I want to build a major software company. Multiple products, multiple revenue streams. Something that outlasts me, that creates jobs and opportunities for others. Walsh smiled. That's an excellent vision. If you're serious about scaling up, I'd be interested in investing. Not controlling interest, you'd remain the majority owner and CEO. But capital, connections, strategic advice. I've built several successful companies. I could help you avoid common pitfalls. Why would you do that? Because you remind me of myself 30 years ago. Ambitious, talented, fighting against people who underestimated you. I didn't have mentors when I started. I want to be that for someone else. Why not you? It was an extraordinary offer. Harrison Walsh as an investor and mentor could accelerate her company's growth by years. I'd need to think about it, discuss it with my advisors. Of course, take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Naomi discussed it with Patricia, with her mother, with trusted colleagues in the industry. Everyone agreed it was a remarkable opportunity. Walsh's reputation was impeccable. His business acumen was legendary. And he was offering to invest without taking control. In April, Naomi accepted the investment. Walsh Global Holdings purchased a 30% stake in NJ Tech Solutions for $5 million. The capital allowed Naomi to expand rapidly, hiring more staff, developing additional products, opening a second office. By summer, the company employed 20 people. Revenue was approaching $2 million annually. Naomi was profiled in business magazines, invited to speak at conferences, recognized as a rising star in the tech industry. And Derek? Derek was 18 months into his prison sentence, working in the prison library for pennies an hour, his debt to Naomi growing larger every month. Sometimes Naomi felt guilty about how far she'd risen while Derek had fallen so spectacularly. But then she remembered standing in her kitchen, 7 months pregnant, reading his note. The baby doesn't change anything. He'd shown no mercy then. She owed him none now. In August, Brittany Walsh requested a meeting. Naomi was surprised but agreed. They met at a quiet coffee shop, Brittany looking healthier than in the photos from 2 years ago, tanned, confident, her eyes clear. "Thank you for seeing me," Brittany said. "I wanted to apologize in person for my part in your pain. You didn't know what Derek was doing? I should have asked more questions, done more research. I was naive and privileged and I let him manipulate me. That's not an excuse, but it's my truth." Naomi studied her. "How are you doing now?" "Better. I took time away, traveled, did some therapy. I'm working on a startup of my own now, actually. Not using my dad's money, I'm doing it independently. Trying to prove to myself I can build something without his name behind it." "That's good. That's really good. I heard about your company, about your success. I'm happy for you. Genuinely. You deserved so much better than what Derek did. I'm glad you rebuilt." They talked for another hour, finding unexpected common ground. Both had been deceived by the same man. Both had rebuilt their lives afterward. Both were proving that Derek's betrayal hadn't defined them. They didn't become friends, the history was too complicated for that. But they reached something like understanding. In October, Naomi hired her 50th employee. NJ Tech Solutions had become a legitimate company, with multiple products, steady revenue, and a growing reputation for excellence. She moved the company to a larger building, an entire floor with room for growth. Her office had windows overlooking the city, a far cry from the cramped corner of her home where she'd started rebuilding. Zoe was nearly 2 now, talking in full sentences, asserting her independence, showing hints of the strong-willed personality she'd inherit from her mother. She attended an excellent daycare 3 days a week and spent the other days at the office with Grace's help. Sometimes colleagues commented that it was unusual to bring a child to the office. Naomi didn't care. She built this company, she made the rules. And one of her rules was that her daughter was always welcome. Derek called for his monthly supervised phone session. Naomi put him on speaker, monitoring carefully. "Hi baby," Derek said, his voice tinny through the prison phone system. "It's Daddy. Can you say hi?" Zoe looked at the phone curiously. "Hi. How are you? Are you being good for Mommy? I have a bike. And a dog." Zoe was at the age where she just stated facts, not quite understanding conversation. "That's great, honey. Daddy loves you very much." Zoe lost interest and wandered back to her toys. Derek tried to keep her engaged, but she was done. Naomi ended the call after 5 minutes. Derek had lost even this, the ability to connect with his own daughter. She didn't know him. He was a voice on a phone, nothing more. By December, 3 years after Derek had left, Naomi's company was valued at $20 million. She'd built an empire from the ashes of Derek's betrayal. She hired a financial advisor and started planning for Zoe's future. College funds, trust funds, investments. Her daughter would never experience the financial terror Naomi had felt that day on the kitchen floor. On December 23rd, Naomi received notice that Derek had applied for early parole. He'd served 3 years of his 5-year sentence and was eligible for release with good behavior. Patricia called immediately. They're granting it. He'll be out in February. You should prepare for him trying to contact you. He can't legally. The restraining order is still in effect. He can't contact you directly. But he'll find ways. Trust me. Men like Derek always try to worm their way back in. Naomi wasn't afraid. Derek had no power over her anymore. None at all. She'd won completely. Her empire stood strong. His had fallen into dust. And nothing Derek could say or do would ever change that. Derek was released from prison on February 14th, Valentine's Day, which seemed cruelly ironic. Naomi knew because Patricia received notification from the parole office. Derek would be living in a halfway house, working a required job, subject to strict supervision. He can't contact you, can't come near your home or office, and has to check in weekly with his parole officer, Patricia reminded her. Any violation sends him straight back to prison. Good. But Naomi felt unsettled anyway. For 3 years, Derek had been safely contained behind bars. Now he was free again, existing somewhere in the same city, breathing the same air. The restraining order was paper protection. It only mattered if Derek chose to follow it. Tony offered to maintain passive surveillance. Just to give you peace of mind. I can keep track of where he's working, where he's living, make sure he's not violating the terms of his release. Naomi agreed. She'd rather know than wonder. The surveillance reports showed Derek working at a fast food restaurant, living in a Spartan halfway house room, taking the bus everywhere. His social media had been dormant for years, abandoned after the fraud conviction. He existed in a kind of purgatory, free but not truly free, alive but barely living. Naomi refused to feel sorry for him. This was justice. Consequences for choices. By spring, NJ Tech Solutions had expanded again. 70 employees now, offices in 2 cities, revenue approaching $10 million annually. Naomi had been approached by venture capital firms interested in investing at even higher valuations. She was considering a major funding round that would value the company at $50 million. It was surreal. 3 years ago, she'd been broke and pregnant on her kitchen floor. Now she was running a multi-million-dollar company and fielding offers from elite investors. Zoe was 2.5, enrolled in an exclusive preschool, thriving. She was bright, curious, fearless, everything Naomi had hoped she'd be. And she knew nothing about her father except that he lived somewhere else and wasn't part of their daily life. Someday Naomi would have to explain. But not yet. In May, Naomi received an unexpected letter. Not from Derek directly, that would violate the restraining order, but from his parole officer forwarding a message Derek had asked to be passed along. Naomi, I know I can't contact you directly, but I needed you to know I'm sorry. For everything. I've had 3 years to think about what I did, and I understand now how badly I hurt you. I destroyed our marriage, abandoned our daughter, stole from you. I was a coward and a criminal. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you were right about everything. You deserved better. Zoe deserves better. I hope she grows up knowing her mother is strong and brave in everything I wasn't. I owe you $284,000 in restitution, support and legal fees. I'll be paying you $200 per month through wage garnishment. It'll take decades to pay off, but I'll pay every penny. It's the least I can do. I hope you're happy. I hope you built a good life. You deserve that. Derek. Naomi read the letter 3 times. It sounded genuine. No excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement of his crimes and their consequences. She didn't respond. What could she say? Thank you for apologizing for destroying my life? Some things couldn't be fixed with words. She filed the letter away with all of Derek's other communications, a record for Zoe if she ever wanted to understand her father. In June, Naomi met someone. His name was Andre Bennett, and he was an architect working on the renovations for NJ Tech's newest office expansion. He was tall, kind-eyed, soft-spoken, with an easy smile that lit up his whole face. They'd had several meetings about the office design, and Naomi had found herself looking forward to them. You're staring at him, her assistant Michelle teased after one meeting. That's the 3rd time this week you've called him in 4 design consultations. I'm concerned about the space utilization. You're concerned about how good he looks in those jeans. Naomi laughed, embarrassed. It was true. Andre was attractive, yes, but more than that, he was genuine. He listened when she talked. He asked thoughtful questions. He treated her like a person, not a CEO or a success story or a victim of Derek's crimes. He asked her to dinner after the office project was completed. Naomi hesitated for days before saying yes. Dating felt terrifying. Trusting a man felt impossible. But Andre was patient. Their first date was simple: dinner at a quiet restaurant, conversation flowing easily. He talked about his work, his family, his passion for sustainable design. She talked about Zoe, her company, her cautious optimism about the future. "I should probably tell you," Naomi said over dessert, "I'm divorced. I have a daughter." And the divorce was complicated. "I know. I Googled you after our first meeting." At her startled expression, he added quickly, not in a creepy way, "You're semi-famous in business circles. Articles come up. I read about what happened with your ex-husband. I'm sorry you went through that. It was 3 years ago. I've rebuilt." "I can see that. You're impressive. Not just the company, though that's impressive too, but how you talk about your daughter. How you've turned something terrible into something strong. That's remarkable." They dated slowly. Dinner once a week. Coffee meetings. Walks in the park. Andre met Zoe after 2 months, and she took to him immediately, showing him her toys, demanding he read stories, climbing into his lap with the easy trust of children. Naomi watched them together and felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope for a future that included romance, partnership, maybe even love. In August, Harrison Walsh invited Naomi to present at an investors' conference. She'd be speaking on a panel about women in tech, sharing her story of building NJ Tech Solutions. The conference was in New York at a luxury hotel, attended by hundreds of venture capitalists and angel investors. Naomi was nervous but prepared. She'd given dozens of talks over the past 2 years. She knew her story, knew her pitch, knew how to command a room. The panel went brilliantly. Naomi spoke about resilience, about turning adversity into advantage, about the importance of owning your intellectual property and protecting your work. The audience was engaged, asking questions, taking notes. After the panel, several investors approached her. One, a woman named Samantha Reed who managed a $100 million fund, was particularly interested. "Your growth trajectory is incredible," Samantha said. 70 employees in 3 years, consistent profitability, strong client retention. "I'd love to discuss a potential investment." They met for breakfast the next morning. Samantha outlined her proposal: a $20 million investment at a $100 million valuation. It would make Naomi's stake in her own company worth over $50 million. $50 million? "I need to think about it," Naomi said, her mind reeling. "Discuss it with my advisors." "Of course. But Naomi, you've built something exceptional. You deserve to benefit from that financially. Don't undervalue what you've created." Flying home, Naomi stared out the window at the clouds, trying to process. She'd gone from broke to wealthy. From abandoned to sought after. From victim to victor. Derek was somewhere in the city below, earning minimum wage, living in a halfway house, paying off a debt he'd never finish. And she was flying first class, returning to a company she'd built, a daughter she adored, and a man who treated her with respect and kindness. The contrast was dizzying. She accepted Samantha's investment offer in September. The funding valued NJ Tech Solutions at $100 million. Naomi owned 60% of the company, making her net worth approximately $60 million. She was, by any definition, wealthy. Her mother cried when she heard the news. "My baby. My brilliant baby. Look at what you've done." "We did it," Naomi corrected. "You supported me through everything. None of this would exist without you." She set up trust funds for her mother, for Zoe, for her sister and nieces. She paid off her mother's mortgage. She donated to domestic violence charities and organizations supporting women in tech. Money couldn't erase what Derek had done, but it could secure her family's future and help other women escape similar situations. In October, Zoe turned 3. They had a big party this time: 30 kids from preschool, elaborate decorations, a princess cake, face painting and balloon animals. Zoe wore a sparkly dress and a tiara, absolutely radiant. Derek called for his monthly supervised phone session during the party. Naomi almost didn't answer, but she'd maintained the routine for Zoe's sake. "Happy birthday, Zoe." Derek's voice was enthusiastic, trying too hard. "It's my birthday. I'm 3. Zoe held up 3 fingers proudly. "Are you having a party?" "Yes. There's cake and balloons and my friends are here." "That's wonderful, baby. I wish I could be there." Zoe didn't respond. She'd already lost interest, pulled away by a friend who wanted to show her something. Naomi ended the call. Derek's monthly calls were like that now: brief, disconnected, meaningless. Zoe accepted them the way she accepted vegetables at dinner, with polite disinterest. Andre came to the party helping manage the chaos of 3-year-olds hopped up on sugar. He'd become a regular presence in their lives over the 6 months they'd been dating. He was good with Zoe, patient and playful. He respected Naomi's boundaries, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. "He's a keeper," her mother observed, watching Andre chase giggling children around the backyard. "It's early still. Naomi, honey, after what Derek put you through, you could date this man for 5 years before committing and that would be reasonable. But from what I see, he's worth keeping." That night, after Zoe was asleep and they were cleaning up party debris, Andre pulled Naomi into a hug. "Today was fun. Chaotic but fun. Thank you for helping. You didn't have to. I wanted to. I like being part of this. Part of your life, Zoe's life. If you'll have me." Naomi looked up at him, this good man who'd somehow found her despite all her defenses. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared to trust again. To believe someone could really be this good." "I understand. And I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need. I'll still be here." In November, Derek violated his parole. He'd sent a message directly to Naomi's company email, bypassing the restraining order restrictions. The message was brief. "I saw the news about your company's valuation. I'm proud of you. You did it. You won. I hope that brings you peace." Patricia reported it immediately to Derek's parole officer. Within 48 hours, Derek was back in custody facing revocation of his parole. "It was just a message," Naomi said. "Congratulating me. Doesn't matter. He violated a court order. That's a crime. They're serious about enforcing these restrictions." Derek ended up serving an additional 6 months for the violation. When he was released again, he moved to a different city 200 miles away. Out of sight, hopefully out of mind. By December, 4 years after Derek had left divorce papers on her counter, Naomi's life was unrecognizable from that awful day. She ran a successful company worth $100 million. She had a beautiful daughter who was happy and healthy. She had a man in her life who respected her and loved her and Zoe both. She had financial security, professional respect, and genuine happiness. Derek had $50,000 to his name, all garnished for debt repayment, a minimum wage job, and a parole officer he reported to weekly. She'd won. Completely. Undeniably. Spectacularly. And the victory tasted exactly as sweet as she'd imagined. The holidays of Zoe's 4th year were the best Naomi could remember. They decorated their house, a spacious 4-bedroom in a safe neighborhood, purchased with her company's success, with so many lights that it glowed visible from blocks away. Zoe insisted on putting the star on top of the tree herself, Andre lifting her up while she squealed with delight. "Mommy, look. I did it." "You sure did, baby. It's perfect." Christmas morning was chaos in the best way. Zoe tore through presents with the enthusiastic destruction only a 4-year-old could manage. Books, art supplies, a bicycle with training wheels, more toys than any child needed. Naomi's mother cooked an elaborate dinner. Andre integrated seamlessly into their family celebration, helping in the kitchen, playing with Zoe, making everyone laugh. After Zoe finally crashed from exhaustion, the adults sat in the living room with wine and coffee. "This year has been extraordinary," Naomi's mother said, raising her glass. 4 years ago, I didn't know if you'd survive what Derek did. Now look at you. Look at this life you've built." "To new beginnings," Andre added, clinking glasses with them both. New beginnings. That's exactly what this was. In January, NJ Tech Solutions announced its biggest project yet, a comprehensive software platform for sustainable building design, developed in partnership with Andre's architecture firm and funded by a Harrison Walsh investment. The project would take 2 years and involve integrating technology across environmental engineering, construction management, and urban planning. It was ambitious, maybe overly so. But Naomi thrived on ambition now. She also made time for Zoe in ways Derek never had. Mother-daughter art classes on Saturdays. Story time every night. Trips to the children's museum, the zoo, the park. She was building memories, ensuring Zoe knew she was loved and prioritized. Andre proposed in February, during a weekend trip to the mountains. Nothing elaborate, just the two of them on a hiking trail, the world quiet and clean around them. "I know we've only been together for a year," he said, kneeling on the trail. "And I know you have every reason to be cautious. But Naomi, I love you. I love Zoe. I want to build a life with both of you. Will you marry me?" Naomi looked at this good man, this patient man who'd proven himself over and over. Her first instinct was still fear. Marriage had nearly destroyed her the first time. But Andre wasn't Derek. Not even close. Yes, she said. But let's take our time. Long engagement. Make sure we're both ready. As long as you need. I'm not going anywhere. They set a wedding date 2 years out. Plenty of time to be sure, to let Zoe adjust to the idea, to build their combined life gradually. In March, Jennifer Chin, Derek's briefly second wife, reached out. Naomi hadn't heard from her in years. The message was apologetic. Hi Naomi, I hope you're doing well. I've been following your company's success. Congratulations on everything you've achieved. I wanted to reach out because I'm starting a nonprofit focused on helping women who've experienced financial fraud in relationships. I remember how you helped me understand I wasn't alone. Would you be willing to talk about potentially supporting this organization? Not money necessarily, though donations are welcome, but maybe advice, publicity, resources? Naomi called her that evening. They talked for over an hour. Jennifer had rebuilt her life too, going to law school, specializing in financial fraud cases, planning to offer pro bono legal services through her nonprofit. Women need to know they can fight back, Jennifer explained. That the system does work if you're persistent and have good evidence. I want to be that resource for them. I'll support you however I can, Naomi promised. Money, connections, speaking at events. This is important work. She donated $50,000 to Jennifer's nonprofit and agreed to serve on the advisory board. It felt right, using her success to help other women escape the kind of situation Derek had put them both through. In April, Derek completed his parole. He was fully free now, no longer supervised, no longer restricted except by the permanent restraining order barring contact with Naomi. Tony's surveillance, maintained at Naomi's request for peace of mind, showed Derek living a quiet life in his new city. He worked at an accounting firm, having somehow managed to get his CPA license reinstated. He lived alone in a small apartment. He had no social media presence. He'd become essentially invisible. He's paid about $12,000 toward his debt so far, Patricia updated. At his current payment rate, he'll finish paying you off in approximately 30 years. I don't need the money anymore. But he needs to keep paying. It's about accountability. Agreed. The court orders stand. Zoe asked about her father occasionally now, understanding enough to know other kids had daddies who lived with them. Naomi answered honestly but simply, your daddy made some bad choices before you were born. He lives far away now. But you have mommy and grandma and Andre who love you very much. Does daddy love me? I think he does in his way. But love means taking care of people, being there for them. Your daddy wasn't able to do that. Zoe seemed satisfied with that answer. She had enough love in her life not to miss what Derek couldn't provide. By summer, NJ Tech Solutions employed over 100 people and had offices in 4 cities. Revenue exceeded $20 million annually. Venture capital firms valued the company at over $200 million. Naomi was regularly featured in business magazines, on podcasts, at conferences. She'd become a symbol of resilience and female entrepreneurship. Her story, abandoned while pregnant, systematically defrauded, fighting back through legal channels, building a massive company from scratch, resonated with thousands of women. She received messages daily from women in similar situations, asking for advice. She couldn't respond to them all personally, but she tried. She offered resources, recommended attorneys, reminded them they weren't alone. You've become an advocate, Andre observed one evening, watching her respond to emails. That's not something you planned, but it suits you. I just remember how alone I felt. If I can make one woman feel less alone, it's worth it. In September, Harrison Walsh invited Naomi to join the board of directors for Walsh Global Properties. You have insight into technology and business operations that would benefit us greatly, he explained. Plus, I'd like to continue mentoring you. Board service is excellent experience for when you eventually take your own company public. Going public. The idea seemed absurd, but Walsh was serious. In 5 years, maybe 10 NJ Tech will be large enough for an IPO. You should start thinking about that trajectory now. Naomi joined Walsh's board. She was the youngest member by 20 years and one of only 3 women. But she held her own, offering perspectives the older, male-dominated board hadn't considered. Brittany Walsh was at one of the board dinners. She'd built a successful startup of her own, a sustainable fashion company that was getting serious attention. She and Naomi weren't close, but they'd reached a comfortable acquaintance. They could sit at the same dinner table without awkwardness, could chat about business and parenting. Brittany had a 1-year-old daughter now, without the past looming over everything. Derek tried to contact me, Brittany mentioned during a lull in conversation. Through LinkedIn. My assistant deleted it before I saw the message, but she told me about it. He's violating restraining orders again? No, I let that one expire years ago. But still. The audacity of him reaching out as if we were old friends. He's delusional. Always has been. How do you deal with knowing he's Zoe's father? I think about that sometimes. If I'd married him, had his children, they'd be tied to him forever. You cope. You focus on giving your kid a good life despite their father's failures. You don't let his DNA determine her future. Zoe's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She saved me in a lot of ways. Gave me a reason to fight when I wanted to give up. In November, Andre officially moved in. They'd been functionally living together for months anyway, but making it official felt significant. Zoe was thrilled to have Andre around all the time. He set up an art studio in one of the spare bedrooms, teaching Zoe to paint and draw. Is Andre going to be my new daddy? Zoe asked one night at bedtime. Naomi chose her words carefully. Andre loves you very much and wants to be part of your family. You have one daddy already, even though he's not here. So maybe Andre can be like a bonus dad? Someone who's here and takes care of you and loves you. I like Andre more than my real daddy. It was said with a child's simple honesty, no malice or judgment. Just fact. That's okay, sweetie. The people who are present in your life are the ones who matter most. By December, 5 years after Derek had left divorce papers on her counter, Naomi sat in her corner office overlooking the city and took stock. She was 37 years old. She ran a company worth $200 million. Her personal net worth exceeded $100 million. She had a daughter who was healthy and happy and thriving. She had a partner who respected her, loved her, treated her and Zoe with genuine care. She had professional respect, financial security, and authentic happiness. Derek was 41, working as a mid-level accountant, living alone, paying off debt that would follow him for decades. The revenge wasn't that Derek suffered. The revenge was that Naomi thrived. She'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and transformed it into fuel. She'd turned betrayal into determination, theft into entrepreneurship, abandonment into independence. Derek had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her to become the best version of herself. And that was the sweetest victory imaginable. Zoe's 5th birthday party was held at a rented event space, complete with bounce houses, face painting, and a magician. 60 kids attended, classmates, neighbors, friends from various activities. It was elaborate, expensive, joyful. Naomi watched her daughter run around with her friends, squealing with laughter, completely uninhibited. This was childhood as it should be, safe, fun, filled with love and possibility. Andre came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She's having the time of her life. She deserves it. She deserves everything. So do you. 6 months later, Naomi and Andre were married in a small ceremony at a vineyard. Just family and close friends, maybe 50 people total. Zoe was the flower girl, taking her responsibilities very seriously, concentrating hard as she scattered petals down the aisle. When Andre and Naomi exchanged vows, Zoe stood between them, holding both their hands. I promise to be your partner, Andre said. To respect your independence and your strength. To love you and Zoe with everything I am. To build a life that honors what you've created and supports what you'll create in the future. Naomi's vows were simpler. I promise to trust you. To let you in. To believe that love can be healthy and honest and real. And to build this family together, the three of us, based on respect and truth and genuine care. They kissed while Zoe cheered and the small crowd applauded. It wasn't a fairy tale wedding. It was better, real, authentic, earned. That night, after Zoe was asleep and they were alone in their hotel room, Andre asked, Are you happy? Yes. Genuinely, fully happy. For the first time in years, maybe ever. Good. You deserve that. NJ Tech Solutions continued growing. By year 7, the company employed 200 people across 6 offices. Revenue exceeded $50 million annually. Tech Magazine started calling Naomi's platform the industry standard for property management software. Harrison Walsh's prediction came true. In year 8, NJ Tech Solutions went public. The IPO valued the company at over $500 million. Naomi's stake, while diluted by the public offering, was still worth over $200 million. She was, by any measure, extraordinarily wealthy. But the money mattered less than what it represented. Proof that she'd rebuilt. Proof that Derek's betrayal hadn't defined her. Proof that she could create value and build something lasting. She used her wealth strategically. She donated millions to organizations supporting women leaving abusive relationships, to financial literacy programs, to scholarship funds for women in STEM fields. She funded Jennifer's nonprofit generously. She created a foundation in Zoe's name to support single mothers pursuing education or starting businesses. Zoe grew into an intelligent, confident child. She excelled in school, showed talent in art and mathematics, asked endless questions about everything. She called Andre Dad without being prompted. She understood, in an age-appropriate way, that she had a biological father who wasn't present but that Andre was her real dad in all the ways that mattered. Derek's monthly calls had dwindled and then stopped. Zoe didn't ask about them. She'd moved on, her life full enough without him. In year 9, Derek reached out through his attorney, requesting in-person visitation with Zoe. Patricia immediately filed an objection. He hasn't consistently called in 3 years. He's paid minimal support. He has no relationship with her. There's no basis for in-person visits. The judge agreed. Derek's request was denied. But the attempt reminded Naomi that Derek still existed, still nursed some fantasy of being a father. She felt no sympathy. He'd had years to build a relationship through phone calls. He'd had opportunities to be consistent, engaged, present. He'd failed at all of it. His current failure wasn't Naomi's problem. By year 10, Naomi was 42 years old and CEO of a billion-dollar company. She'd been featured in Forbes and Fortune in every major business publication. She gave keynote speeches at tech conferences and entrepreneurship summits. She mentored young women starting their own companies. And Zoe was 10 years old, bright, creative, kind. She knew her origin story in appropriate detail. Her parents had divorced before she was born, her biological father had made bad choices, her mom had built an amazing company, and Andre had joined their family when Zoe was 4. She was proud of her mom's accomplishments, secure in her family's love, completely unburdened by Derek's failures. One evening Zoe asked, "Mom, why did my biological father leave?" Naomi had known this conversation would come. She'd prepared for it. "He was selfish," she said simply. "He wanted things that were more important to him than being a husband or a father. He chose those things over us. That was his choice and his loss. Do you hate him?" "No. I did for a while, but now I mostly don't think about him. What he did was wrong, but it also led to everything good in our lives now. The company, this house, our family with Andre. I wouldn't change any of that. So his bad choice accidentally became good? Kind of, yes. Not because of him, but because I chose to turn something bad into something better." Zoe thought about that. "I'm glad you did. I like our life." "Me too, baby. Me too." That same week, Naomi received notice that Derek had married again, his 3rd marriage. She felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not curiosity. Complete indifference. Derek was a chapter in her past, closed and irrelevant. In year 11, Naomi stepped down as CEO of NJ Tech Solutions, transitioning to chairman of the board. She wanted more time with Zoe, who was entering middle school. She wanted to focus on her foundation work. She wanted to enjoy the life she'd built instead of constantly building more. The new CEO, a brilliant woman Naomi had mentored for 3 years, was excellent. The company continued thriving under her leadership. Naomi spent her days doing work she found meaningful, investing in women-owned businesses, speaking about financial literacy and domestic fraud, teaching entrepreneurship courses at the local university. She traveled with Andre and Zoe. She painted badly but joyfully. She lived. By year 12, Zoe was 12, navigating early adolescence with the same confidence she brought to everything. She wanted to start a small business, making and selling custom phone cases, and asked Naomi for advice. They spent a Saturday working on a business plan together, Naomi teaching her daughter about costs, margins, marketing, customer service. Watching Zoe's mind work, seeing her grasp concepts and ask smart questions, Naomi felt pride that had nothing to do with revenge or vindication. This was just pure motherly pride in a kid who was growing into someone remarkable. "You're going to be successful at whatever you choose to do," Naomi told her. "Because of the genes you gave me? Because I've taught you to be strong and smart and to believe in yourself. Those aren't genes. Those are lessons." That year Derek died. Not dramatically, a heart attack at 53, sudden and final. His current wife called to inform Naomi since Zoe was technically his next of kin. Naomi felt nothing. No grief, no satisfaction, no closure. Just neutrality. She told Zoe gently, "Your biological father passed away. I wanted you to know." Zoe was quiet for a moment. "Should I be sad?" "You feel however you feel. There's no should. I feel mostly nothing. Is that okay?" "Perfectly okay. He was a stranger to you." It's normal not to grieve strangers. They didn't attend the funeral. There was no reason to. Derek's story was over, and it had ended the way many stories of selfish people end: alone, unmourned by those he'd hurt, forgotten by those he'd abandoned. In year 13, Naomi published a book, From Betrayal to Billions, Building a Life and Company After Financial Fraud. It was part memoir, part business guide, part manifesto about women's economic independence. It became a bestseller, helping thousands of women understand their options when facing financial abuse. The book tour was exhausting but rewarding. At every stop, women lined up to share their stories, to thank Naomi for speaking openly about what she'd endured. They wanted to know how she'd fought back, how she'd won, how she'd built something extraordinary from the ruins of her marriage. "I didn't have a secret," Naomi told them honestly. "I just refused to let his betrayal define my future. I had skills, determination, and support. I used those things. You can too." By year 15, Naomi stood in the penthouse office of NJ Tech Solutions, now a multi-billion-dollar company, watching the city spread out below. Zoe was 15, preparing for high school, already talking about where she wanted to go to college. Andre had his own successful firm. Naomi's mother was healthy and happy, living in a beautiful condo Naomi had bought her. Everything Derek had tried to take, security, success, happiness, Naomi had reclaimed and multiplied. She'd built an empire not through cruelty or revenge, but through skill, determination, and refusing to be broken. Derek's final appeal for reduced child support had been automatically dismissed upon his death. The debt died with him, never fully paid. But Naomi didn't care about the money. She'd long since stopped caring. The debt had never been about actual dollars. It had been about accountability, about consequences, about making sure Derek couldn't pretend his actions had no cost. She walked to her desk and pulled out the photograph she'd kept all these years, the one she'd found in Derek's office that terrible day 15 years ago. Derek and Brittany on a beach, young and thoughtless and cruel in their happiness. Naomi looked at that photo one last time, then tore it into pieces and dropped it in the trash. She didn't need physical reminders of Derek anymore. His betrayal had become background noise in a life symphony that drowned out his small, petty song. That evening, Naomi sat with Andre and Zoe at dinner. A simple meal at their dining room table, talking about their days, laughing about something funny Zoe's friend had said, planning a weekend trip. This was her life. This was her victory. Not the billions in the bank. Not the company or the book or the fame. But this. A family built on honesty and love, a daughter who was confident and kind, a partner who respected her completely, and a future that belonged entirely to her. Derek had thought abandoning her would free him to chase wealth and status. Instead, he'd freed her to achieve both beyond anything he'd ever imagined. Her revenge wasn't his suffering, though he'd suffered plenty. Her revenge was her success. Her revenge was being happy, genuinely happy in a way she'd never been during their marriage. Her revenge was living well. And 15 years after that awful day when she found divorce papers on her counter, Naomi Johnson Bennett could honestly say she'd won completely. Not because Derek lost, but because she'd built something beautiful, honest, and lasting. She'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and transformed it into the best life she could imagine. And that was the truest victory of all.